A cowboy helped an injured Apache woman, not knowing she was the sheriff who held his fate. Out on a muddy trail near sundown, a lonely rider found an Apache woman collapsed beside a blood-stained saddle, whispering for help through a shaking breath. He carried her through the storm, thinking she was just another wounded soul left behind by a cruel land, never suspecting the badge hidden beneath her torn blanket. Because once she wakes, the truth he doesn't know could either save his life or send him to the gallows. Was she rescued by luck or hunted by fate? What secret law does she carry? And when justice speaks, who will pay the price? The first sound was rain hitting iron, slow, heavy drops against an abandoned horseshoe half buried in the mud. A cold wind dragged dust across the trail, pushing against the tall pines, carrying the faint smell of smoke and something darker. A cowboy rode alone, soaked from hat to boots, trying to reach town before night swallowed the sky. He wasn't looking for trouble, and he sure wasn't trying to be a hero. He only wanted shelter, fire, and silence. Then he heard a weak cough. Not the cough of an animal, but a human fighting to stay alive. He pulled on the reins. "Someone there?" he called, voice low, unsure if the sound had tricked him. No answer, only another ragged breath. He stepped off his horse, boots sinking into wet ground as he followed the sound. Just past a fallen tree, he found her, an Apache woman lying on her side, one hand gripping the earth like she was trying not to be taken away. Her leg was wrapped in a torn cloth, soaked dark with blood. Her hair was wet, braided with small leather strips, and her chest rose unevenly with every breath. No weapons near her, no tracks, no sign of who hurt her or why she was left behind. "Can you hear me?" he asked, kneeling. She opened her eyes just enough to see his silhouette. "Don't leave," she whispered. He didn't ask questions. He lifted her gently and placed her on his horse, holding her steady with one arm while guiding the reins with the other. The wind grew louder, like it wanted to warn him. Her blanket shifted for a moment, revealing the corner of something metallic, but he didn't notice. They moved toward a hidden cabin he used when the world felt too heavy. Unaware that he wasn't saving a stranger, he was carrying the one person who had the power to judge his past. The cowboy pushed open the cabin door with his shoulder, still holding the injured Apache woman against him. The old hinges groaned like something waking from a long sleep. Dust floated in the lamplight as he stepped inside, the warmth of the small room barely pushing back the cold wind that followed them. He lowered her slowly onto a bed of old furs near the hearth, trying not to move her wounded leg. He struck a match against his boot. The flame shook, his hand shook too. The woman watched him through half-closed eyes, breathing hard from pain. "You're safe here," he said quietly. "No harm." She stared back, silent, as if weighing his soul through the dim light. He poured water into a tin cup, holding it near her lips. "Drink," he said. She hesitated, then took one small sip, another, then one more. Her eyes softened with tired trust, but her jaw stayed tight, like she refused to show weakness. He looked at the bleeding cloth. "I need to see your leg," he said. "Please trust me." She turned her face away, breathing through her teeth. "No cut," she whispered. "Bullet." His eyes widened. "Who shot you?" She closed her eyes again. "No, why now?" He nodded. "Fine, but I must clean it." He grabbed a small knife, heated it near the flame, and pressed his sleeve between her teeth. "Bite this, it helps." Her voice turned sharp. "Do it fast." He rolled up the cloth covering the wound. Blood had dried and cracked along the skin, and a dark spot showed where metal still rested inside. He breathed slow to steady himself, then worked with gentle fingers. She arched, gripping the bed, silent screams trapped behind her clenched jaw. He removed the bullet and dropped it into a metal cup. It rang like a tiny bell of death. She gasped as the pain lessened. "You skilled?" He shook his head. "No, I've been hurt too." Silence settled, thick and heavy, like snow that refused to fall. He wrapped her leg with clean cloth he ripped from an unused shirt. Rain hit the wooden roof like small stones. The wind scraped at the walls as if something outside wanted in. The woman studied him. "Why help?" He pulled the blanket higher over her shoulder. Didn't want you dying alone." She narrowed her eyes. "Men don't help free." He sighed. "Someone did once. I owe the world." Her breathing slowed as she processed his words, but her gaze remained sharp. "Debt never ends," she muttered. He turned, placing more wood in the fire. Still better than walking past. A long moment passed, silent except for the crackling flame. Then she spoke again, voice barely above a whisper. "You carry guilt." His back stiffened like she'd struck him with a hammer. He did not turn around. "Everyone does," he answered. She shook her head slowly. "Yours is heavy. I hear it." He walked to the small shelf and pulled down dried meat and bread. "Eat," he said. She took one piece but held it suspended, eyes fixed on him. "Are you hunted?" she asked. He looked away. "Aren't we all—" She did not blink. "I don't hide from law." His hands paused over the fire. The air between them changed, colder than rain. He tried to smile but his lips barely moved. "Law don't know my name." She leaned back into the furs, her breathing steadied. Then she whispered one final line, slow and heavy. "Law knows your face." Lightning flashed through the cabin window, lighting her profile for an instant. Something metallic slipped from beneath her blanket. A star-shaped badge, old but polished, glinting like truth. He stepped back as if the ground had dropped. She stared into the fire, not at him, her voice calm. "You helped a wounded woman?" Then she turned her head, eyes sharp as a drawn blade. "But I am the law. And I know what you did." The cowboy froze near the hearth, staring at the badge like it was a rattlesnake ready to strike. The room felt smaller, walls closing in, firelight shaking across the floorboards. He swallowed slow, his throat dry as sand. The woman didn't move her hand toward the badge. She didn't threaten. She didn't shout. She simply let truth breathe. "You work for town law?" he asked. "I am the law," she answered. "Since when?" "Many moons." "Quiet work." He stepped back one pace. "Apache sheriff." "Badge don't care skin," she said. "Not in that town," he warned. "I changed rules," she whispered. The wind hit the cabin hard. The door shuddered. He pointed to her wrapped leg. "Why alone, if sheriff?" She looked into the fire. "Law has enemies," she said. "All law or your law?" "Right law," she replied. He sat on the floor near the wall, not too close. His voice dropped. "If you know my face, say it." She kept eyes forward. "You were seen near a burned cabin," she said. His chest tightened. "I did no harm," he whispered. "Fire don't start alone," she replied. "I tried to stop it," he said. "Prove it," she answered. Her tone wasn't angry. It was measured, calm, like a judge waiting for truth to stand on its own legs. He rubbed his hands through his wet hair. "The landowner set it. I saw it. Why burn home? Debt. He wanted land cleared. Why you close? I slept in barn. Needed work." She studied him again. Her gaze wasn't cruel. It was trained, like she saw shadows others ignored. "Town wants answers," she said. "Town wants someone," he corrected. "Often same thing," she whispered. Silence stretched. Outside, thunder rolled low, long, like a threat crawling closer. He leaned forward. "If you turn me in, I hang." She didn't blink. "Truth decides," she said. He lowered his voice. "Truth don't speak loud in courts." "Then I speak loud," she replied. For a moment, the fire popped and a spark jumped into the air, landing close to her hand. He moved fast, grabbing the spark with his sleeve before it burned her skin. She watched him closely. "You save life twice," she murmured. "I don't leave people burning," he answered. "Good words," she said. "Good proof," he replied. She pushed herself up on one elbow, pain twisting her breath. "I go back town," she said. "You can't walk," he warned. "Then carry," she said. "Town hates me," he whispered. "Town fears truth," she said. He looked at the rain-beaten door. The storm was still strong but not endless. If they reached town, he risked a rope. If they stayed, her wound risked infection. He knelt beside her. "You trust me on road." "You choose my life," she replied. "I choose your safety," he said. Then choose justice too, she answered. He wrapped his coat around her shoulders and lifted her carefully. Her breath hissed with pain, but she didn't cry out. We leave at first light, he said. No. Now, she whispered. Storm kills, he warned. Delay kills law, she replied. He stared at her, soaked, wounded, unbroken. Why so urgent, he asked. She held his gaze, breath sharp. Not only you hunted. The window suddenly flashed, with a lantern outside and swinging in human hands. Then footsteps in wet mud stopped right by the door. The cabin floor vibrated once, slow, like a heavy boot had settled. A deep voice whispered on the other side of the wood, "Open up." The cowboy froze, holding his breath as the storm outside mixed with the low voice behind the door. The injured Apache woman steadied herself on the bed, one hand slipping under the fur as if she still held authority, even while wounded. Her eyes sharpened, not with panic, but calculation. "Stay silent," she whispered. "You want me caught," he muttered. "Not by wolves," she replied. Another knock, harder this time, shook the door on its hinges. "I heard voices." "Open it," the man outside demanded. The cowboy moved toward the wall and blew out the main lamp, leaving only small ember light from the fire. Shadows stretched long like hungry fingers. Rain hammered the roof harder, as if trying to drown out decisions. "Hide," she ordered quietly. "You're hurt," he replied. "Hide," she repeated. He slipped behind a tall wood cabinet near the corner, far from the fire. His heartbeat sounded louder than the storm. The woman straightened her back as much as she could, gripping the blanket with iron determination. The door slammed again. "Last chance. I know someone's inside." Her voice came out steady, despite pain. "Storm shelter. Private." The man outside paused. "You alone?" She hesitated half a second, long enough for danger to smell weakness. "Yes," she said. The cowboy clenched his jaw behind the cabinet. The stranger's voice dropped lower. "Then you won't mind if I check." The latch began to shift. The cowboy's hand reached for the old iron poker hanging by the hearth. His fingers curled around it, holding it like a silent promise. The door creaked open, slow and heavy. A tall figure stepped inside, long coat soaked, hat dripping rainwater onto the dusty floor. He closed the door behind him without breaking eye contact with the woman. "Bad night to be alone," he said. "Better than wrong company," she replied. He smirked. "You seen a drifter pass through, tall, quiet, rough clothes?" She stared coldly. "Many drifters exist." He took 2 slow steps forward, studying her wound. "Strange place for a lady during a storm?" She kept her expression stone still. "Storm don't ask permission." He chuckled. "Fair, but I'd like answers." She pretended to adjust her blanket, hiding her leg deeper. "Not your business." The stranger leaned closer, voice dropping into threat. "Everything here is my business." The cowboy gripped the poker tighter, ready to spring. The stranger's eyes moved slowly around the room. He noticed 2 cups near the fire. "You said alone," he said. She closed her eyes slow, like preparing for a blade. "1 cup old," she answered. The stranger touched the cups with his glove. The heat rose like confession. He turned his head toward the dark corner. "Funny, still warm." The cowboy prepared to strike, breath shallow, muscles locked, ready to act if the man reached for a weapon. The stranger stepped closer to the cabinet. "Come out," he ordered. "No trouble if fast." The woman spoke sharply. "He saved my life." The stranger stopped, turning to her. "That's so." She nodded, eyes fierce. "Bullet wound, he pulled it." The stranger stared, unsure if it was truth. "Then where's the bullet?" She pointed slightly toward the cup where the cowboy had dropped it. The stranger picked it up, studying the bloody metal inside. "Not many know how to cut clean," he murmured. His tone shifted, softer, thoughtful, like he'd seen men die from less. "If he saved you, he ain't simple drifter," he said. The woman stared harder, voice steady as judgment. "He's no killer." The stranger turned toward the cabinet, but didn't lift his gun. "If he's harmless, he can step out." The cowboy breathed slow, then stepped forward, poker lowered but still in hand. "I didn't start no fire," he said. The stranger looked him over. "Didn't ask about fire." All three eyes locked, fear, law, and unknown motive, suspended like lightning before strike. The stranger's expression changed, unreadable. He reached into his coat slowly. The cowboy raised the poker in defense. The woman tensed, hand sliding toward her badge. Lightning struck outside, bright, violent, illuminating the object the stranger pulled from his coat. A folded wanted notice, edges soaked, ink smeared, with a face that matched the cowboy's eyes. The cabin fell silent except for the crackle of fire and the heavy beat of rain. The stranger unfolded the wanted notice fully, lifting it toward the lantern's faint glow. The cowboy tried not to look at his own image, but there it was. Dark eyes, tired face, soot stains near the collar. He felt like the paper stared back harder than the man holding it. "Looks like you," the stranger said. "Paper lies," the cowboy answered. "Ink don't travel alone," the stranger replied. "Fire don't either," the cowboy muttered. The injured Apache woman raised her chin. "Charges?" she asked. "Arson, land dispute, 1 dead," he replied. The cowboy shook his head sharply. "Nobody died," he said. The stranger tapped the paper. "Someone did, says right here." "Paper wrong," the cowboy repeated. The stranger stepped closer, cautious. "Then tell truth." The cowboy looked at the sheriff, wounded but alert, hoping she saw something in him worth saving. "Landowner set the fire. He wanted fields cleared," he said. "Why you near barn?" the stranger asked. "Sleep. I had no house," the cowboy replied. The stranger tilted his head. "Convenient place for flames." The cowboy clenched his teeth. "Convenient for thief calling victim guilty." The sheriff spoke, voice low. "He pulled a bullet. That matters." The stranger narrowed his eyes. "Or hide skill from war days." Lightning flashed again, shaking the small window frame. The cowboy stayed still, poker in hand but lowered. "You law too?" he asked. "Not exactly," the stranger answered. "Bounty hunter," the sheriff whispered. The stranger smirked. "Call me finder of truth." The cowboy's grip tightened. "You sell men?" "I deliver justice for coin," the stranger replied. The sheriff's jaw locked, breath sharpening like a drawn blade. "Law needs truth, not bias," she said. "Truth needs pay," he countered. "Honor needs none," she answered. The stranger took 1 step toward the cowboy. "Come quiet. Less pain." "I won't hang for another man's crime," the cowboy said. "That's what guilty say," the stranger said. The sheriff lifted herself higher, wincing. "Show him wound," she ordered. "I saw it," the stranger replied. "See reason too," she whispered. The stranger paused, looking between them. He seemed to weigh wind, wound, and words. "You protect him," he said. "He saved my life," she replied. "Debt clouds mind," he warned. "Clear mind sees deed," she answered. Another long silence pressed against the cabin walls. The stranger looked again at the wanted paper, then at the cowboy's hands, then at the sheriff's wound. His voice softened, not kind, but thoughtful. "Town meeting at dawn. Judge attends," he said. "Fair judge?" the cowboy asked. "Fair to proof," the stranger replied. The sheriff's breath grew heavier. "I speak there," she said. "You can't ride," the cowboy warned. "Carried once? Can again?" she insisted. The stranger walked to the window and looked through the rain toward the dark tree line. "Storm hides tracks tonight. Chance for escape," he said. The cowboy straightened. "You offer run?" "I offer choice," the stranger replied. The sheriff's voice cut through air like a cold blade. "He stays. Faces truth," the cowboy whispered. "Truth don't scare me." The stranger looked at both, unreadable. Then dawn decides fate. He folded the notice and tucked it away. Then he leaned close to the cowboy, voice barely above wind. "Town don't wait for sunrise," he said. "What?" "Riders already coming." Hoofbeats thundered through the storm, distant but growing fast. The stranger blew out the last lantern and gripped the door handle. "They didn't come for talk." He opened the door, rain blasting in, and 3 torchlights flickered between trees. The 3 torchlights moved through the trees like hunting spirits, dipping in and out of darkness as rain blew sideways. The stranger shut the door fast, sliding the old wooden beam across with one hard shove. The sheriff winced as she tried to sit higher, sweat mixing with rain on her brow. "Riders know this place," the cowboy whispered. "Hunters know every gap," the stranger answered. The fire hissed softly, glowing just enough to outline fear. The sheriff spoke, voice tight. "No fight. We think first." "Thinking don't stop bullets," the cowboy muttered. "Running don't stop law," she replied. The hoofbeats drew nearer, steady, practiced, not drunk or lost. Whoever approached had purpose. The cowboy checked the shutters. "They see smoke," he said. "They smell fear," the stranger added. "They sense truth," the sheriff whispered. The stranger pulled a short rifle from beneath his coat and set it on the table. "They call themselves peacemen," he said. "Town guards?" the cowboy asked. "Land guards," he replied. The sheriff's eyes sharpened. "Owner's men." "Same story again," the cowboy whispered. "Land worth more than life," the stranger said. The torchlight stopped outside. Hooves slowed. Silence pressed like a knife against wood. A voice called out, deep and confident. "We know someone's inside." The cowboy backed near the cabinet. "We don't open," he said. "They burn doors," the stranger replied. "They won't burn sheriff," the cowboy whispered. "They don't know sheriff," she warned. A knock hit the cabin, 3 slow, taunting hits, not impatient, not afraid. "Open peaceful," the voice said. "Trouble makes smoke." The sheriff breathed out sharply. "They don't come for you alone," she said. "They come for witness," the cowboy asked. "They come for badge," she whispered. The stranger looked at her wound. "You fight, you bleed out." "I speak. They shoot first," she replied. "So what plan?" the cowboy asked. She stared at the floor, thinking through pain. "Hide badge," she said. "Where?" She pointed to the old stove. "Inside iron. Heat fools search." The cowboy took the badge, hesitating. "You sure?" "Law survives words." "Not metal," she answered. He slid it behind the stoveplate, letting heat swallow the shine. Another knock, harsher, shorter. The voice outside changed tone. "We give count to 5. The stranger chambered his rifle. "We shoot first," he asked. "No," the sheriff hissed. "Talk buys seconds." The cowboy whispered, "Say what?" The sheriff drew a deep breath, eyes burning with quiet authority. "Say wounded woman rests," she said. "And 2 men guard her," the stranger added. "Not guard," she corrected. "Family." The cowboy blinked. "Family?" "Family gets mercy," she muttered. The stranger almost smiled. "Or deeper sin," he said. The voice outside began counting. 1. The sheriff motioned to the cowboy. "You speak first," she whispered. "Why me?" "Your voice says truth," she said. 2. The cowboy stepped closer to the door. He swallowed once, steadying breath. He felt her gaze behind him, not pleading, not ordering, but trusting. 3. He raised his voice. "Injured woman inside, needs rest." A short silence. Then the voice. "Who are you?" The cowboy hesitated. The stranger whispered fast. "Family word." The cowboy spoke louder. "Her family protects her." The men outside murmured to each other. Rain softened just enough to catch whispers. 4. The sheriff closed her eyes, listening not to thunder, but footsteps. Her hand slid beneath the blanket, not for weapon, but for strength. The stranger leaned near the cowboy's ear. "If they enter, choose window." "For all," he whispered. "For her first," the stranger said. The voice outside rose again. "Then prove family, open slow." The cowboy looked back toward the sheriff. She nodded once, jaw tight, eyes fierce. He reached for the door latch with shaking fingers, and as his hand touched iron, a second voice, deeper, colder, older, spoke from outside. "No need. We brought fire." The cowboy froze at the words, fingers still touching the iron latch. The rain outside shifted, tapping faster, like the sky wanted to warn them before men did. The sheriff's breath stopped for half a second, her hand gripping the fur harder. The stranger slowly turned his head toward the window, eyes narrowing. "Fire," the cowboy whispered. "They bluff," the stranger muttered. "Or remember history," the sheriff said. Outside, boots shuffled through mud. A torch hissed as rain hit it, but it stayed burning. A third voice spoke, cruel and confident. "Land cures faster than law." The sheriff closed her eyes. "Same words as before," she whispered. The cowboy looked at her. "You heard that line?" "Once." "Before screams," she answered. The stranger leaned close. "If they burn, we choose break," he said. "Break what?" the cowboy asked. "Cabin, window, road," the stranger replied. The cowboy shook his head. "She can't ride far." "Then carry truth," the stranger said. The sheriff lifted herself slowly, fighting pain like she had sworn an oath even wounds must respect. "They fear witness more than outlaw," she whispered. "So you target," the cowboy said. "Truth target," she corrected. A loud thud hit the wall from outside, not a knock but a test strike, like someone measuring wood strength with the promise of flame to follow. Rain didn't scare them. Law didn't scare them. Only silence kept them patient. The sheriff pointed at the back wall. "Old exit, behind Pelt's," she said. The cowboy pulled down heavy fur blankets, revealing a small rough plank door, half buried under dust and age. "Works. If hope works," she murmured. The stranger handed the sheriff his coat. "Cover badge sent," he said. She lifted an eyebrow. "Badges smell." "To those who hunt them," he replied. Outside, the first torch slammed against the cabin side, smearing flame along wet wood, testing if it might catch despite rain. "We move now," the sheriff whispered. "Where?" the cowboy asked. "Creek bed, no tracks," the stranger said. "And riders." "Mudslow's pride," he replied. The sheriff tried to stand but collapsed. Teeth clenched against a cry she refused to release. The cowboy rushed and lifted her, supporting her weight carefully. "I walk some," she insisted. "Walk later," he answered. The stranger unlatched the hidden back door, cold rain blowing inside instantly. The sheriff shivered, gripping the cowboy's shirt with one hand. "Ready?" the stranger asked. A heavy pause filled the cabin. The sheriff whispered, "Truth don't hide. It moves." They stepped outside into darkness, mud gripping their boots like hands desperate to drag them down. The rain masked their footsteps, but the torches still burned bright on the other side of the cabin, voices rising. "Check windows," one man ordered. "Smoke first," another replied. They slipped behind stacked logs, staying low. The stranger scanned the woods. "Creek that way," he whispered. "How far?" 400 steps, he answered. The sheriff's breath shook with pain. "I won't slow," she said. "You live if slow," the cowboy replied. Suddenly, a dog barked from near the horses, loud, sharp, trained. Another bark followed. Then a long growl. The sheriff's eyes widened. "Track dogs," she whispered. "I hate track dogs," the stranger muttered. The cowboy shifted her weight. "We split." "Never split truth," she replied. A torch suddenly swung toward the back of the cabin. A man shouted, "I saw movement." The stranger cursed under his breath. "Creek now." "Dogs fast," the cowboy said. "Water hides scent," the stranger replied. They moved faster, mud splashing against rocks, rain stinging their faces. The sheriff held on, face twisted with pain, but eyes blazing with will. The dogs barked again, closer. Then came the command. "Release collars." The woods erupted with rustling paws as two dark figures broke into a sprint. The sheriff whispered one last line, voice steady. "If I fall, save truth, not me." The cowboy tightened his hold and ran harder. As the first dog burst through the tree line, teeth glowing under torchlight, the dog lunged through the darkness, teeth flashing like wet iron under stormlight. The cowboy twisted sideways, tightening his hold on the injured sheriff while the stranger stepped forward, boots sinking deep into mud. "Don't run. Face it," the stranger warned. "I can't fight holding her," the cowboy said. "Then hand her over," the stranger replied. "I won't risk her," the cowboy growled. "Risk means choosing," the stranger answered. The dog growled low, body crouched, ready to spring again. The sheriff forced her voice through pain. "Don't kill it," she whispered. "It kills us first," the stranger replied. "Dogs follow orders," she said. "Men gave those orders," he muttered. The second dog burst from the brush, circling wide, cutting escape. Rain fell harder, flattening grass, making every sound sharper. Torches behind the cabin flickered like angry stars. "We need water now," the stranger said. "Creek's close," the cowboy asked. "Down that slope," he pointed. The first dog barked, inching closer. The sheriff whispered, "Show open palms, no threat." The stranger sighed. "Threat chosen for us." The cowboy did it anyway, raising one hand slowly, showing he held no weapon. The dog paused, ears twitching, breath steaming in the cold. For 1 second, mercy seemed possible. Then a whistle cut through rain, sharp, commanding. Both dogs sprinted. "Run!" the stranger shouted. They slid down the muddy embankment, barely staying on their feet. The sheriff clung around the cowboy's shoulders, teeth clenched against agony. Mud flew up in thick sprays as they slid toward rushing water. The creek roared below, swollen from storm, cold enough to steal breath. "Jump or die," the stranger said. "She can't take cold," the cowboy warned. "She can't take teeth either," he replied. The sheriff whispered, "Water saves truth." "Go." Without another word, the cowboy held her close and leapt. Ice-cold water swallowed them, dragging downward with brutal force. The stranger jumped after, boots disappearing into churning river foam. The shock tore air from lungs. The sheriff gasped but didn't scream. The cowboy kicked hard, keeping her head above water. "Hold my neck," he shouted. "Already am," she rasped. The current pulled them downstream fast, bouncing against rocks and broken roots. Above the roaring water, the dogs barked from the bank but wouldn't jump. A voice shouted faintly through rain. "Track downstream! Don't lose them!" The stranger surfaced beside them. "Stay middle! Edges drag deep!" "She's fading," the cowboy warned. "Keep her talking," the stranger said. "Say something," the cowboy whispered. "Say what?" she breathed. "Anything," he replied. She whispered, "Truth never drowns." They drifted until the current slammed them into a fallen log. The stranger grabbed it, pulling all three toward a low bank hidden by reeds. They crawled out, soaked, coughing, shaking. The sheriff's lips trembled from cold. "Fire needed," she whispered. "Smoke guides hunters," the stranger warned. "Cold kills faster," the cowboy said. "So heat without smoke," the stranger murmured. He searched the bank using only feel, not light. Under wet leaves he found brittle grass and a hollow stump shielded from direct rain. "Flint quick," he said. "You have flint?" the cowboy asked. "Always," the stranger replied. The sheriff stared through rain, mind still working like a silent judge. "If they reach creek, they track mud," she whispered. "Then we hide prints," the stranger answered. "How?" the cowboy asked. "Walk in water again." "Half mile," he said. The sheriff closed her eyes. "I can't walk." "I carry again," the cowboy said. The stranger lit a tiny ember fire inside the hollow stump. Heat, but no flame tongue visible to distant eyes. Steam rose from their clothes. "We move after heat," the stranger said. "Where?" the cowboy asked. The sheriff opened her eyes, voice iron thin. "Sacred Ridge. Hidden caves." The stranger stiffened. "That land sworn?" She nodded once. "Land protects truth," she whispered. A sudden crack of rifle fire echoed through the woods, not aimed at them but close enough to ripple air. The stranger whispered, "They shoot signals now." The cowboy turned his head fast. "Means what?" The stranger loaded his rifle slow. "Means they know direction." Through the trees, another torchlight began moving toward the creek, steady and confident. The torchlight pushed through the trees like a slow, hunting sun. The rain gave it a faint halo, turning the woods into a battlefield of shadows and dripping branches. The sheriff held her breath against the cold, jaw locked, refusing to show weakness where truth needed strength. The stranger leaned forward, scanning low, not high. "They rid ground, not sky," he whispered. "Mud prints obvious," the cowboy replied. "Then erase while moving," the stranger said. The sheriff spoke through tight breaths. "Creek walk still plan." The cowboy looked at her wound. "Cold steals life. Truth steals fear," she answered. The torchlight paused near the bank. A man's silhouette leaned down, studying soil with slow patience, not panic. "He's tracker," the stranger muttered. "Nose dogs," the cowboy added. The sheriff whispered, "Sacred Ridge North. Creek leads there." The stranger adjusted his rifle strap. "I go first. Noise small." "I carry her," the cowboy said. "Then breathe like stone," the stranger replied. They moved back into the creek, the water striking like icy knives around their ankles. The sheriff clung to the cowboy's shoulders, silent except for slow, controlled breaths. The torchlight on the bank stopped moving. A voice murmured, "Tracks end here." Another voice answered, "Water hides cowards." The cowboy's eyes darkened. "Not coward," he whispered. "Silence speaks louder," the sheriff said. The stranger signaled with 2 fingers. "Slow steps, not sudden." "Ridge path twist soon," he whispered. "How no?" the cowboy asked. "I track debtors everywhere," the stranger replied. They continued along the creek, the current pushing against them like unseen hands trying to drag fate backward. Branches hung low, forcing them to bend, risking splashes that might carry sound. The sheriff shivered again. "Need warmth soon," she murmured. "Ridge has caves," the cowboy asked. "Breathing stones," she whispered. The stranger raised his fist. "Stop." Ahead, faint on the bank above them, a single lantern glowed with a steady flame, not swaying, not searching. "Camp?" the cowboy asked. "No. Waiting post," the stranger murmured. "They trap ridge path," the sheriff whispered. The stranger exhaled slow, thinking. "Then change path." "Which?" the cowboy asked. "Through dead marsh," he replied. The sheriff's eyes widened. "Roots swallow feet," she warned. "Better feet than ropes," he answered. They slipped from the creek, moving under a curtain of wet branches into terrain that felt wrong, soft ground, whispering reeds, earth that breathed like an animal's lung beneath their steps. "Step on roots, not soil," the sheriff instructed. "You know marsh?" the cowboy asked. "Tribal scouts taught paths," she whispered. Lightning flashed, illuminating the marsh for just one heartbeat. Tangled roots, black puddles, and half-sunk logs created a maze where one wrong step meant sinking into a grave without walls. "Follow her voice," the stranger said. "But not fast," the sheriff added. They moved one cautious step at a time. Then a distant horn echoed through the woods. The stranger froze. "Signal horn means spread out," he said. "They hunt wide circle," the cowboy whispered. "No circle covers marsh," the stranger replied. The sheriff tightened her grip. "They know caves matter." "Means they know ridge too," he replied. Rain turned to heavy drizzle, giving air a ghostly stillness. The marsh smelled of iron and wet bark, like old battleground soil that never forgot. Suddenly the ground shifted beneath them, a slow sink. "Stop," the sheriff warned. The stranger whispered, ground giving. "Find root," she said. She reached down and tapped a half-buried ridge root with her hand. "Step here, then left," she whispered. The cowboy followed carefully, adjusting her weight, muscles burning from cold and burden. "You still with me?" he asked. "Still judge breath," she replied. A faint glow appeared through the rain ahead, not fire, not torchlight, but phosphorescent moss crawling along a slanted slope. The sheriff breathed a faint, pained smile. "Ridge begins there," she whispered. The stranger nodded. "Stone path near, then safe." But before they reached it, a low creaking sound broke the silence. Not storm, not animal, not marsh. Wood. Large wood. The stranger turned his head sharply. "Hear that?" "Not marsh sound," the cowboy whispered. The sheriff's eyes widened, understanding before the others. "That's a bridge signal board," she whispered. "Meaning what?" the cowboy asked. She answered with a voice full of dread and certainty. "Men already wait on the ridge." And as she spoke, a lantern flame ignited atop the rocky slope above them, held by a silhouette who saw exactly where they stood. The lantern on the ridge did not sway like a lost traveler's light. It held still, deliberate, balanced by a hand that already understood the land beneath their feet. The flame drew a long orange line through the rain, a signal born from certainty, not hope. The sheriff steadied her breathing. "They know ridge trails," she whispered. "Means they spoke to someone, the stranger muttered. Or watched someone, the cowboy added. The silhouette lifted the lantern higher, revealing the faint outline of a long rifle leaning against his shoulder. He didn't shout or warn or boast. He simply waited, like a man convinced that time itself would obey him. The stranger's voice dropped to a near-silent rasp. He's blocker, not hunter. Blockers expect tired prey, the cowboy replied. Blockers enjoy corner first, the stranger said. The sheriff's pulse shook against the cowboy's back. We choose path, not trap, she whispered. Only two paths, the stranger replied. Name them, the cowboy said. Stone Ridge or Deep Marsh, he answered. The sheriff tightened her grip on the cowboy's coat. Marsh kills slow, Ridge kills fast. The cowboy exhaled. Fast beats slow. Fast offers chance, she said. Behind them, faint splashes echoed. Not dogs this time, but boots, stepping carefully through water. The stranger's jaw clenched. They entered creek, he whispered. Then time thin, the sheriff said. He checked the ridge incline. We climb quiet, not quick. My leg weak, the sheriff admitted. I pull you, the cowboy answered. Pull risks fall, she warned. The stranger cut in. Fall ends more pains than bullets. Lightning cracked above, revealing stone edges like sharpened blades jutting from the ridge wall. Moss glowed faint beneath the rocks, creating a faint, eerie trail, only visible when rain struck it right. That moss mark's hidden to outsiders, the sheriff whispered. So Lantern Man notices glow, the cowboy replied. Unless glow means nothing to him, the stranger added. Boot splashes behind them grew louder. Choose now, the stranger urged. Ridge, the sheriff whispered. He nodded once, then touched the rock with two fingers, finding handholds. Follow my steps. Exact. No more. The cowboy lifted the sheriff higher, positioning her arms around his shoulders so she could lean forward, not backward. Each movement tore pain through her wound, but she only hissed once, never crying out. Ready? He asked. Ready since birth, she whispered. They began climbing, slow and silent, gripping wet rock, pushing against slippery moss. The ridge rose steep, threatening to betray them with each shift of mud and rain. Behind them, a voice shouted, Tracks lead north. Another voice, Lantern Man sees them. The sheriff whispered, Don't look back. The cowboy breathed sharply. Not planning to. Halfway up, the stranger halted suddenly, pressing himself against the stone. Movement above, he whispered. The cowboy froze. The sheriff held her breath. A small pebble rolled down, tapping near their boots. Then another. Then silence. The stranger whispered, That's not wind. A soft voice drifted down, calm, controlled, unsettlingly polite. Climb safe. Land don't forgive rush. The cowboy felt his blood turn cold. He knows we hear, he whispered. So he plays teacher, the stranger muttered. Or judge, the sheriff breathed. The polite voice continued. Storm ends soon. Stay still until rain stops, then talk. The sheriff's grip tightened. He wants daylight eyes. The stranger spoke through clenched teeth. Daylight means rifles, see hearts. Night means slip, the cowboy answered. Choose lesser funeral, the stranger replied. Suddenly, the silhouette above moved and slow, deliberate, placing the lantern onto the rock, then stepping back out of sight, leaving flame alone as a silent order. He knows Ridge protects him, the sheriff whispered. Knows we fear fall, the cowboy said. Knows we value truth over pride, she answered. Boot splashes below turned to climbing sounds, more men joining the chase. The stranger hissed, up faster or down bloodier. The cowboy shifted weight and climbed again, rain soaking his shirt, breath heavy with cold and responsibility. The sheriff pressed her forehead to his shoulder, whispering strength instead of weakness. Truth climbs too, don't drop it. They reached a narrow stone shelf, a fragile ledge barely wide enough for 3 breaths of safety. The storm wind roared past, threatening to tear them away like leaves. Then the lantern flame suddenly flickered blue, shifting color as if reacting to something unseen. The sheriff whispered with fear she almost never used. Blue flame means sacred ground and forbidden eyes. As she spoke, a deep, Hollow drumbeat echoed from somewhere inside the ridge rock. Not man-made, not wind-borne, but ancestral. The blue-tinged flame flickered on the ridge stone, not supernatural, just reacting to something in the soaked rock or hidden powder. The sheriff stared at it, breathing slow, mind racing through old field training and border patrol tricks she once learned before the badge ever touched her chest. "Not sacred," she whispered. "Then what?" the cowboy asked. "Signal powder, copper mix," she replied. The stranger nodded. "Used by scouts," he murmured. Below them, the climbing sounds drew nearer, boots scraping rock, while rain slowed into heavy droplets. The stranger studied the lantern flame like it was a coded message. "Blue means quiet zone," he whispered. "Quiet zone?" the cowboy asked. "No gunfire here," he replied. "Why rules?" the cowboy pressed. "Deals made here," the stranger answered. The sheriff tightened her fingers on the cowboy's shoulder. "They want talk, not chase," she said. "Talk with rifles near," he muttered. "Still talk," she insisted. The stranger tapped the stone shelf beneath them. "Look." Carve marks. Faint etchings ran across the ledge, tally lines beside small initials and dates. Not graves, not prayers. Negotiation records. Men stood here before, argued here before, judged here before. "Like old trail council," the cowboy whispered. "Law outside court walls," the sheriff replied. "Law or trap?" the stranger asked. "Both sometimes," she admitted. A voice rose above them, level and unhurried, the same polite tone as before. "Stay calm." Weather easing. No threat, no demand, which, in its calmness, felt more threatening than orders. The sheriff whispered, "He wants me speaking." "How no?" the cowboy asked. "Ridge rules need authority witness," she said. The stranger scoffed. "Authority bleeds tonight." "Still breathes," she replied. Bootsteps stopped just below them, out of sight but close enough to strike if wrong words slipped. Rain drained off the ridge edge, dripping like clock ticks into the marsh below. The polite voice returned. "3 of you. 1 wounded, 1 hunted, 1 uncertain." The cowboy's grip tightened. "He counts rolls," he whispered. "He studied stories," the stranger replied. "He studied people," the sheriff corrected. The voice continued. "We speak when you're ready." The stranger whispered, "Means no shot unless shot first." "Still stalling," the cowboy said. "Stall buys breath," the sheriff replied. She shifted, trying to sit on her own, though pain shook her entire frame. "Don't," the cowboy warned. "I must speak upright," she insisted. "Your leg tears," he argued. "Truth stands, not lies," she whispered. With his help, she leaned against the ridge wall, not fully upright but no longer carried like the dying. Her face showed agony, but her eyes held command. She called upward, voice steady. "Ridge rules accepted." A pause, then the lantern flame flared slightly, as if wind carried new strength. The polite voice answered, "Then step forward when ready." The stranger whispered sharply, "No, not now." "We must," she replied. "He holds ground," the cowboy warned. "Ground don't speak." "We do," she answered. The stranger leaned close. "We don't trust them." "Trust not needed. Terms are," she said. Another voice, harsher than the polite one, rose from below. "Time near up, storm ends," the sheriff whispered. "Storm hides hearts. Clear sky shows lies." The stranger studied her face. "You think truth stops rope?" "Truth stops my silence," she replied. He sighed through tight teeth. "Then I flank. Watch aim." "No ambush," she warned. "Not ambush. Balance," he answered. The cowboy prepared to help her step to the ridge mouth, rain easing now into mist. He steadied her and whispered near her ear, "We speak together." She nodded. Together, then judged. They edged forward slowly, boots sliding cautiously, gripping rock for support. The stranger stayed 1 step back, rifle held low but ready. At the ridge mouth, the lantern light revealed 3 armed men waiting on a wider stone platform, not aiming, but watching. The polite man stepped forward, coat heavy with rain, face shadowed but posture straight, official, disciplined, certain. He raised one open hand, not a weapon, and spoke, "Ridge Council begins." Before any reply, a fourth man stepped from behind a boulder, someone none of the three fugitives recognized, holding a burned scrap of paper matching the wanted notice. The fourth man held the burned scrap between two fingers as if it weighed more than iron. Rain mist coated his hat brim, yet he stood with the steady calm of someone who already believed he understood the truth before anyone spoke. The sheriff steadied her voice. "State roll," she said. The fourth man answered slowly, "I own the barn." The cowboy's jaw clenched. "You lit fire," he muttered. The man tilted his head. "Facts speak, not insults." The stranger whispered, "He came to clear blame." The polite man raised his palm again. "Ridge rules." "No accusations yet," the sheriff spoke carefully. "Report events, not titles." The barn owner lifted the scrap higher. "This paper claims arson." "Paper lies if ink lies," the cowboy replied. "Ink came from Judge Clark," the barn owner said. The stranger narrowed his eyes. "Clark paid by landmen," he muttered. "Prove coin trail," the polite man replied. The sheriff's breathing tightened, but her focus sharpened like cold steel. "Witness testimony first," she said. The polite man nodded. "Survivor speaks before hunted." She straightened as the cowboy steadied her arm. "Barn fire began outside," she said. "How no?" the polite man asked. "Smoke pattern," she whispered. The barn owner smirked. "You saw from miles?" Her voice remained steady. "Smoke stains climb inward." The polite man nodded slowly. "Rain matched that night." "Dry winds," she said. The barn owner stepped closer. "He was inside," he insisted. The cowboy answered sharply. "I slept near hay." "Hay holds sparks," the man replied. "Sparks came from lantern hook," the cowboy said. The stranger interjected, "Lantern rope cut?" "Yes," the cowboy answered. "Cut means sabotage," the stranger said. The polite man looked between them. "Proof of cut?" "Frayed ends, not tear," the cowboy replied. "You remember that detail?" "Survival remembers," he said. The barn owner pointed at the sheriff. "Why defend him?" She met his eyes. "He saved my life." "That earns no innocence," the man said. "It earns credibility," she replied. The polite man raised his lantern slightly. "Next detail." The cowboy swallowed hard. "I heard men outside," he said. "Voices. 2 voices, whispering. Words heard. Hurry and push." The barn owner scoffed. "Pure invention," the stranger shot back. "Men rushed fire for gain." "Gain?" the polite man asked. The stranger replied quietly, "Land clears easy if barn gone." The sheriff closed her eyes briefly, gathering pain into clarity. "Barn insured?" she asked. The barn owner hesitated. "Common safety." "Recent purchase?" she asked. He froze half a breath too long. "Timing irrelevant," he said. The stranger leaned toward the cowboy. His pause spoke guilt. "Pause not proof," the sheriff whispered. The polite man placed the lantern on a flat stone, letting its blue-tinged flame illuminate all 3 faces. "We weigh motives now." The sheriff spoke. "Cowboy lacked property motive." The barn owner replied, "Drifters burn for anger." The cowboy answered, "No anger that night." "Everyone hides anger," he said. The stranger folded his arms. "But you gain land and coin," the barn owner countered. "Coin rebuilds community." The polite man raised his voice slightly, still measured. "Enough debate. Need object proof." The sheriff whispered, "Door latch direction." "Explain," he said. "Door pushed from outside," she replied. The barn owner frowned. "Assumption." "I saw hinge pattern," she said. The polite man turned toward her wound. "Your state weak." "Vision blurred," she responded coldly. "Memory not blurred." A faint crunch of gravel sounded behind them, not from ridge surface, but from a narrow path leading deeper along the cliff wall. The stranger's hand shifted near his rifle. "Someone else here." "Friend of them," the cowboy whispered. "Or witness," the sheriff replied. The polite man raised his voice. "Step forward. Ridge grants hearing." For several heartbeats, only mist moved. Then a small figure emerged, wrapped in a wet wool shawl, face hidden, carrying a charred wooden hinge broken clean in the center. Tear marks, not cut marks. The sheriff whispered, "Hinge proves direction." Before she could speak further, the figure collapsed unconscious, dropping the hinge at the sheriff's feet. The small figure lay still on the wet stone, shawl soaked and hands curled around the broken hinge as though it were a final breath of truth. Rain mist drifted around them like a slow curtain, while the lantern flame burned blue-tinged against rock powder, steady and unafraid. The sheriff leaned forward, breath shaking. "Check pulse," she whispered. The cowboy knelt fast, pressing 2 fingers gently. "Breathing weak," he said. The stranger scanned the ridge edges. "We exposed long," he muttered. The polite man stepped closer, voice controlled. "Identify witness," he said. The sheriff studied the shawl pattern. "Mill worker cloth," she whispered. The barn owner stiffened. "Many wear cloth," he muttered. The stranger lifted the hinge carefully, examining both ends. "Split surface is rough," he said. "Means forced outward," the sheriff replied. "Fire began outside, not within," the cowboy added. The barn owner glared. "Coincidence?" "Wood weak," he snapped. "Fresh hinge never splits rough," the stranger said. The polite man raised one hand. "Ridge demands order," he stated. All fell silent except rain tapping stone. The sheriff steadied her breath. "Witness holds hinge willingly," she whispered. "Or planted," the barn owner replied. "Planting requires foresight," the cowboy answered. "Foresight earns motive," the stranger said. The barn owner stepped closer, face tight. "This ridge holds no judge," he said. The sheriff fixed him with a cold stare. "Ridge holds truth pattern," she replied. The polite man motioned toward the hinge. "Place it center," he commanded. The stranger set it before the lantern, blue flare reflecting across wet stone. The sheriff inhaled through pain. When door pushed outward, hinge tears like this. She pointed slowly, careful not to move her wounded leg. Barn door bursts outward, not inward. "Fire outside," the cowboy spoke. "I smelled oil near doorframe." "Oil common in barns," the barn owner said. "Not fresh on ground," the cowboy replied. The polite man turned slowly. "Fresh oil near outside threshold." "Yes," the cowboy answered. The barn owner scoffed. "Smell proves nothing in storm." The sheriff replied. "Storm began later that night." Silence. Rain slowed into cold drizzle, every drop landing like a slow gavel. The stranger leaned toward the polite man. "Ask barn owner where he was." The sheriff nodded. "Account for that night," she said. The barn owner hesitated. "I slept. Home bed," he muttered. "Witness?" the polite man asked. "No need witness," he replied. "Ridge requires witness," the sheriff said. The cowboy looked at the unconscious figure. "This one saw something," he whispered. The barn owner snapped. "Assumption from silence." "Silence sometimes screams," the sheriff replied. The polite man knelt and gently examined the witness's shawl hem. Inside, stitched faintly, was a mill emblem that marked night shift laborers. He stood. "Mill shift ends near midnight," he said. The sheriff nodded. "Barn burned near midnight." The barn owner stepped back, boots scraping stone. "Coincidence still," he said. The stranger raised his voice. "Coincidence stacked equals intent." "No court here," the barn owner argued. "Ridge becomes court when truth climbs," the sheriff replied. The polite man turned to the cowboy. "Why sleep in barn?" "Shelter," he replied. "Payment or permission?" "None," he answered. "Then why not ask?" "I feared refusal," he said. The sheriff whispered, "Fear not crime." The barn owner barked, "Trespass invites suspicion." The stranger countered, "Suspicion invites investigation, not lies." The polite man examined the cowboy carefully. "Did you see figure outside?" "Saw shadow, heard whispers," he said. "Describe shadow," he asked. "Tall, heavy coat." "Limp, slight," the cowboy replied. The sheriff stiffened suddenly. "Limp? Which leg?" "Left," he answered. The barn owner flinched, almost invisible, but not enough. "Old injury," he muttered. "From when?" the polite man asked. "Winter fall," he replied. "Which winter?" "Last," he said. The sheriff stared. Town said injury from spring, she whispered. Town speaks rumors, he muttered. The stranger's voice sharpened. Your story fractures. The polite man stepped forward. Why hinge here? The sheriff replied. Witness carried it for fear of disposal. The cowboy added softly, Fear hides truth until lightning strikes. The barn owner raised his voice. This entire scene illegal. The sheriff answered, So is death by silence. The unconscious witness stirred suddenly, coughing once, weak but aware. The sheriff lowered herself near, voice gentle. Speak if able, the witness whispered, barely audible. Saw 2 men late outside. The barn owner shouted, Delirious from smoke. The sheriff replied, Smoke victims forget self, not terror. The witness continued, breath trembling. He argued, said, Burn clears path. The barn owner froze. Not me, he forced out. The stranger spoke. Who owns path? The sheriff whispered. Land route beyond barn to station market. The cowboy turned slowly. Path increases land value. The polite man stepped back, eyes narrowing. You bought insurance and then petitioned land route. The barn owner replied too quickly. That petition months later. Date signed early, the sheriff whispered. How no? The barn owner snapped. I stamped it, she replied. Silence. Absolute, heavy, damning silence. The stranger spoke low. Motive, timing, preparation. Sabotage, not accident, the sheriff added. Fire meant eviction, the cowboy said. The polite man lifted the lantern slowly, letting blue glare reveal every face. Ridge finds probable guilt. The barn owner backed toward the ridge edge. I refuse verdict, he cried. Ridge not optional, the sheriff replied. Storm tricked minds, he shouted. Storm revealed lies, the stranger answered. He grabbed a loose rock, holding it like a desperate animal. None of you force me. Rope comes after truth, the sheriff whispered. There will be no rope, the polite man said. For one heartbeat, hope flickered. Then he continued. Ridge punishment is land exile. The barn owner trembled. Exile means ruin, he whispered. Ruin matches deed, the stranger said. He stepped back too far, heel sliding on wet moss. A sharp crumble sounded. He lost footing. The cowboy lunged instinctively, grabbing the barn owner's coat sleeve before the fall. Muscles strained, boots slipping. Rain hit stone. Breath halted. The sheriff whispered, Choose mercy, or truth cost. The cowboy tightened his grip. I won't kill, he said. The stranger warned, He kills trust if freed. The barn owner stared into the cowboy's eyes, voice shaking. Let me, I beg. His next words cracked under weight. I didn't mean death, the sheriff whispered, intent still cut hinge. The polite man spoke final. Decision belongs to savior. The cowboy closed his eyes once, remembering smoke, rain, wounded breath, and truth earned through cold water and mud. Then slowly he pulled the barn owner back onto the ridge, saving him from the fall. No applause, no praise, just rain and breath. The sheriff whispered, Mercy becomes witness. The polite man set the lantern down firmly. Climax ends, judgment next dawn. As thunder rolled, the barn owner collapsed to his knees, and the unconscious witness opened their eyes fully, now clearly ready to speak again. Dawn broke without warmth, only pale light spreading across the ridge like a slow truth. Mist curled low around their boots, and every breath showed in the chill. The sheriff sat upright now, leaning against rock, pain clear but dignity unbroken. The stranger watched the horizon, rifle lowered but not forgotten. The cowboy stood near the barn owner, close enough to protect, close enough to restrain. The polite man placed the hinge and the burned scrap on a flat stone. Morning grants clarity, he said. The sheriff whispered, truth already clear. The witness, now conscious, pulled the shawl tight, voice fragile yet determined. I saw him pour oil, they said, pointing to the barn owner. Night dark, he argued. Lantern glow behind, the witness replied. The cowboy kept his tone steady. Why burn? The barn owner stared at the stone. Land route promised gold, he muttered. The stranger stepped forward. Gold buries towns, he said. Gold feeds futures, the barn owner countered. Not futures made from ash, the sheriff replied. The polite man turned to the cowboy. Speak final thought, he instructed. The cowboy breathed slow. I forgive, but don't excuse, he said. Explain, the polite man requested. Evil grows when ignored, he replied. The sheriff added softly, mercy without memory becomes fuel. The polite man nodded once. Sentence stands. Exile, no violence. The barn owner trembled. Where go? Beyond valley line, the polite man answered. No trade, no land deals, no return. The witness stepped forward, voice steadier now. I guide him to Trail Gate, they said. Why help? The stranger asked. Survival teaches compassion, they replied. The sheriff closed her eyes with pain, yet peace. Take supplies, she ordered. The barn owner whispered, Why grant kindness? Because cruelty repeats cruelty, she answered. As packs were prepared, the cowboy placed one hand gently over the sheriff's. You live, he asked. Not done yet, she whispered. The polite man turned to both. Walk with honor, he said. Honor comes from choice, the cowboy replied. The stranger nodded once. Our paths part now, he said, heading toward the lower trail. Tracks cross again, the cowboy offered. If needed, the stranger replied. The barn owner, led by the witness, paused only once to look back, no plea, no anger, only understanding of consequence carved deeper than flame ever reached. He walked on until his figure blurred into morning mist. The cowboy lifted the sheriff gently, supporting her step by cautious step. You safe now, he whispered. She answered, Safety earned, not gifted. Their slow descent marked the end of the Ridge Council, not with celebration, but with the quiet dignity of truth accepted without triumph. At the foot of the trail, dawn finally warmed the earth. Storm saved us, the cowboy said. Storm revealed us, the sheriff replied. They walked toward town, not as fugitives and officer, but as two people who had seen how mercy reshapes justice without softening it. And the ridge behind them remained silent, not sacred, not haunted, but remembered. They reached the first patch of level ground where the trail widened, and morning light revealed the battered world below. Wet grass, bent reeds, soot still clinging to their clothes like stubborn memory. The sheriff paused, steadying herself against a cedar trunk. The cowboy adjusted his grip, not forcing, only offering balance. The sheriff studied the distant smoke rising from the valley, thin and harmless, nothing like the cruel column that once framed suspicion. Town still sleeps, she whispered. Sleep heals, the cowboy replied. Wind rustled the branches overhead, not ominous, only honest. The stranger's distant silhouette could be seen for a moment on a separate ridge, head bowed slightly as if acknowledging a chapter lived, not glorified. The sheriff looked up at the cowboy. So you could ride, she said, and leave duty, he asked. No duty binds you, she replied. He shook his head slowly. Not duty, choice, he murmured, step by step. They continued along the muddy path, boots sinking just enough to remind them of what they carried, not burden but consequence. The sheriff exhaled, deeper than before, pain still sharp, yet framed by purpose rather than fear. Ridge changed us, the cowboy whispered. Ridge tested us, she answered. What tested grows might, he said. She nodded. Or breaks, she added. He paused, looking her directly in the eyes. You didn't break, he whispered. She breathed once. Neither did you. They resumed, moving toward a settlement that would demand answers. And though truth no longer weighed like stone, it had not grown light. It had simply become bearable. Behind them, the ridge stood untouched, not a monument, not a warning, but a place where justice walked without witness, and still held firm. If stories like this moved you, tales of justice, mercy, frontier law, and human redemption, then don't just leave now. Ride with us into the next trail of untold legends. Every week we craft new frontier dramas inspired by real moral battles, forgotten codes, and the quiet heroes history never wrote down. So hit subscribe, ring the town bell, and step inside our storytelling campfire, where no moment is wasted and no truth stays buried. When you join this community, you aren't just watching. You're taking part in a world where courage shapes destiny, where even the guilty can choose redemption, and where every viewer becomes a silent witness to roads that might still be walked today. If you believe character matters more than violence, honor speaks louder than bullets, and justice means more than punishment, this is your place. Here, we value grit over glory, wisdom over speed, and hearts that rise even when the ground below shakes. Pull up a seat, share your thoughts, and help shape the stories that deserve to live on. Your voice strengthens this frontier, and your insight keeps the fire burning. Stay with us. More trails await. And on each one, your verdict matters.